Welcome to the Conceive, Believe, and Achieve podcast, where we delve into the minds of elite athletes and coaches to uncover their secrets behind their success. I'm your host, Sean Garris, former university wrestling coach, D1 wrestler, national champion, Olympic trials medalist, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, three-time world team coach in grappling, and author. Join me as we explore the realms of training, mindset, goal setting, overcoming adversity, and various coaching methodologies in the world of sports. Get ready to be inspired and motivated as we learn from the best in the game on our journey to achieving greatness.
We interrupt this programming to bring you some important messages.
Hey wrestlers, ready to show your passion for wrestling and style? Introducing the Let's Wrestle apparel designed for champions like you. Whether you're on the mat or in the gym or out with friends, Let's Wrestle apparel is made for comfort, durability, and making a statement. Their high-quality, breathable fabric keeps you cool and focused no matter how intense life gets. With bold designs and a perfect fit, Let's Wrestle apparel is more than just clothing. They're a badge of honor for dedicated athletes. Available in a variety of sizes and colors, there is clothing in the Let's Wrestle apparel collection for every wrestling warrior. Don't just wrestle, wrestle in style. Visit their website at www.letswrestle.ca to browse their collection and order yours today. Join the movement and let the world know you're ready to rumble with Let's Wrestle apparel. Welcome to Wrestling with Goals, the Conceive, Believe, and Achieve podcast. I'm here with a special guest, the head coach of the University of Alberta's wrestling teams, the men's and the women's, the Pandas and the Golden Bears.
Correct.
I got that right because I didn't get it right the first time. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I've seen a lot of athletes that I followed on the show, and I figured it'd be great. And thank you for the invite.
Yeah, no. Well, we've known each other for a while. I think we wrestled in the same era.
Yes.
And I think we wrestled once. I don't remember wrestling you any other time, but
no, I think we go back all the way since junior high, possibly.
Somewhere around there, yeah. I've known what you've done in wrestling as an athlete. You were let's talk about your young years as an athlete. If you don't mind, because I'm sure some of your wrestlers at the University of Alberta might want to hear about how you dominated the mats in high school. And
you know what, high school was fun. I started wrestling. I was in I think it was grade 7, and there was a program right across from the high school, White Oaks High School. So I went across to start practicing there. I was invited by my old coach, Lloyd Lewis. Invited me out, and I started off wrestling, and I took to it right away because it was something that was mine, something that I could do. I was fairly explosive, fairly powerful, and I started off with wrestling, and I had a fair amount of success from day one, and it carried me through where I've won a few Ontario championships. I hate to say my biggest regret, but one of my biggest things that I didn't win was the OSSA Wrestling Championships. OSSA are big high school championships in Ontario, and that's one of the big championships I never happened to win. One year I was up, I'd say 8-0, actually 7-0 semifinals, and I ended up losing 8-7 in Windsor by 8 one-point takedowns. I went on to win bronze in that one. And then the next year, where I was, ranked to win, I going right along, dislocated my elbow in the semifinals of that one, and that was it for me for Ontario High School Championships. And I moved on from there to go to Douglas College, where I continued from there wrestling, all the way through to Simon Fraser University. I've been on our national team a number of times. And and through there, Simon Fraser University, NIAs, it was, for me, the road was rocky, but it was fun. I had a lot of ups and downs, whether it was, I was never a senior national champion. I was runner-up a few times. Even at the junior level, I seemed to always be the runner-up there, and I think those lessons that I learned from my wrestling, whether it's being a national champion at the junior level or being runner-up at the senior level, it just taught me a lot of perseverance and a lot of fight through. And I think if I'd had the storied career where I've won everything, I don't know if I would be the person that I am right now. I don't know if I'd be coaching, because that little chip on my shoulder probably wouldn't be there per se. You always wanting to edge for a little bit more, and that's why this last year I actually stepped back on the mat at the Masters Championships in the United States. I had a little goal, got myself in shape, lost 125 pounds. I said, hey, why not give wrestling a try, and went to the Masters. And it was a daunting to step on the mat and just realize all of those demons that you had when you're on the mats, they were just sitting there waiting for me when I got back on the mat. The same fears, the same apprehensiveness, and you'd think after being away for 24 years, you would have dealt with them, but you stepped out there, you were just as nervous, you were just as apprehensive. All those things, that I didn't work on as an athlete were all there. It's almost saying, hey, we're still here, So, I mean, for me, it was great because it also gave me another perspective for my athletes, the weighing in, the constant warming up and warming down throughout the day, getting warmed up for a match, weight, being sore, stepping out on the mat and having to force yourself to wrestle when your body's been cooled down, and coming back coaching. It sort of opened up a different sort of my eyes, and a little bit different when it comes to empathy for my athletes and getting them ready and understanding, it's not as easy as we may seem it is as coaches, because our athletes are tired. They're going to classes, they're doing so much. And when you put yourself in their shoe and, being out there, being fatigued, being tired, being hungry, stepping out on the mat by yourself, having to prove yourself, and having hundreds, well, in that tournament was thousands of people watching at the same time. It's daunting. So in coming back to coaching, it has definitely brought me a different perspective. It's made me a better coach, and I'm excited for the year ahead.
Wow. I mean, just hearing that, I did see the pictures on the internet of you trimmed down one, but then I saw you at the U.S. Nationals with somebody that I know for a long time, Derek Brignall. And I'm scratching my head like, what's going on here? He's wrestling again. Like, what's going on? Like, because I know at my age, I'm like, I would never do that. Well, especially with my head injuries, multiple concussions. But for somebody to go back and to do that is pretty amazing in itself, especially at our age. I'm not going to know how old we are, but at our age, going back to something, you always hope and you always think, okay, I'll do it. And then I always wonder about okay, I'm going to get injured, and then it's just I can't function at my job if I do that. What were your thoughts going into this?
You know what? And I kept it quiet for the longest time. I didn't tell anybody. My athletes know about it because they were helping me train, but then one of my athletes posted it on Facebook or Instagram that, hey, good luck to Coach Dawkins at the U.S. Nationals. And all of a sudden, the sense of nervousness went from 1,000 times 1,000, because you're like, this was just something I was doing for myself. And then all of a sudden, bam, there it is on Instagram. Oh, Coach Dawkins is wrestling. And then, it hit me. Oh, shit, this is real. Sorry for swearing, but, this is real. And it was the nice comforting thing, because me and Derek Brignall, we were roommates from SFU. So it was sort of something we did together. We were roommates at the tournament, and he ended up winning the tournament, in the same weight class. And it was nice because I took turns wrestling, and then I got a chance and I coached him, so it was doing both the passions I love so much. And, I coached, and then I went and wrestled, and I recognized I love coaching a lot more, and the highs are the same as wrestling, but just a little different. And, I'm going to do it again this year. We're both going to go, and hopefully, following up with the World Championships next October. But that's something I'm going to train for more than 1 month on the mat this time. Train for the whole year and go give it a try.
Train for 1 month and then throw yourself to the wolves, eh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're continuing it and you're chasing after it. It's that's great. I have a little story about Derek Brignall. I'm going to tell you, because I don't know if he's told you this about, and you knew my dad.
Yes, very well.
So my dad coached the AWOLS Wrestling Club in London, Ontario, and Derek was one of our wrestlers there.
I didn't
Derek,
know.
when he was a young lad, he didn't conform to rules and regulations that well.
Oh, that's so true.
Well, one day we took, my dad used to take kids down to the U.S. to wrestle all the time. And we went to the Ohio State Fair and it was one coach. Parents would, just let the kids go down there. You didn't even have to have, sign permission to do this. So we took a van, I think, of 16 kids. Derek was on there as well. And, we wrestled in a barn at the Ohio State Fair, and it was different. The times for matches were staggered. So I think my dad had left a bunch of kids at the back, at the hotel, and they were staying at the Red Roof Inn. And Derek was there back because he wasn't wrestling at the time, and the other kids were. And my dad drove back into the parking lot after, this session of wrestling, and it was late at night. And he sees these fireworks going pew, 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 off the deck, and he's wondering what the hell is going on. And he's getting closer and closer, and he sees it's Mr. Brignall. He's shooting off these fireworks somewhere from the. And my dad's pissed, and you know how big my dad.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So let's just say he disciplined Derek in a way that would not be acceptable for kids these days. He didn't hit him, but he did hold him over a balcony.
Oh my God!
How big my dad's hands were, right? They just gripped a hold of
I've had him put his hands around my neck, and it literally wraps right around.
Yeah. Monstrous hands.
Exactly.
And my dad felt so bad about doing it afterwards. He went back to Derek's dad and he said, I apologize, this is what I did. And he goes, he probably deserved it.
And I knew Derek's dad as well, so I could see him saying that. To this day, Derek and I he's one of my closest friends, and I know his family, and we're pretty close. So
yeah. No, I'm glad he stuck close to wrestling. I did see him beside you, and that's I think I do follow him and both of you guys on Facebook or something like that. One of these social media channels.
What he's done, he stayed in jiu-jitsu, and he does that probably 4 or 5 times a week, works out every day, so he's active. Yeah. He hasn't been on the mat, but I think the jiu-jitsu transfer over because he had wrestling. He's a fairly good wrestler before, so his ability, and he was just in way better shape than everyone there, and he just outworked everyone at the nationals, and he beat the former national champion with ease. So it was nice to watch him coach him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great to coach. And let's talk about your journey in the wrestling room. Pete, you're going into your wrestling room where you've created these champions, and now you're kind of throwing yourself to the wolves. How did it feel to, instead of, I guess, being the coach, to competing against the kids that you recruited?
You know what? I'm glad they're nice on me because one of the guys that trained with me, and he's unfortunately moved on. He's coaching up in Nunavut and teaching up there is Isaiah Springer, and I practiced with him most of the time leading up to it, and it was nice because he took it easy on me. I had some of the other guys, I broke my ribs, things like that. It's just when you're an old man, you don't have that same muscles around your midsection like you did when you were young. So that was. Quickly, I learned we don't do ground wrestling. We don't do gut wrenches. Some things you just put it off the edge. And I think definitely for my athletes, it was really cool for them to see myself putting myself out there, right? Putting myself in the mat. And I think it just brought a different sense of respect for them to say, hey, coach is out there with us, and he's not just on the sideline coaching. And they trust me tremendously, but I think it definitely changed the way they looked at me as a coach, and the fact that I got myself in shape. And I think as a coach, if you're going to preach something, you should probably try to follow it up in your own lifestyle as well. So I think they appreciated that, and I appreciated their help and pushing me and continued motivation to keep going.
Yeah. And that Instagram post that you talked about, again, that's the first time I actually saw the body transformation. You talked about losing
125, yeah.
125 pounds. How did you go about doing that?
You know what? It was daunting. I started off, and I'll tell you there's a couple stories I'll tell you that sort of pushed me into it. And I think one of the first ones, I was coaching at our CanWest Championships, and I leaned back on a chair to sort of to throw in a protest, and I completely shattered the chair.
Oh. Because
I was so heavy, I shattered the chair, and then some parents took it and actually posted on media. My own athletes took it and shared it around on media. And I was just like, wow. And it was daunting. And I I ignored that for a while, and and then I was in Italy, coaching at our training camp, and we were in the same. We stayed in the same building. It was the Stallion Wrestling Camp, and I was going from the venue to my room, which probably I'd say maybe 400 meters, and I had to stop in the middle of it to rest because my back was hurting me so much. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, I got to make a change. But what actually pushed me over the edge to say, hey, I need to do something about this? I was in the park playing with my kids, and there was another dad there, and they were going from apparatus to apparatus, running around, jumping, and I couldn't do it. And I'm like, my kids are, at that time, they were 9 and 6 years old. And I said, I don't want to be that dad that's sitting watching my kids play. I want to be in there playing with them, jumping, going from monkey bars to monkey bars, But even though I had those other 2 experiences that were so embarrassing, what actually pushed me into it, that I wanted to be better for my kids. I wanted to be able to play with them. And, when my son said, hey, Dad, let's go for a bicycle ride, or let's go play in the park, I wouldn't be sitting there watching. I would be jumping and climbing the apparatus with him. So that's where was truly my motivation to just say, get this, and then I was just walking every day. I do 3-hour walks. And then from walks, I went from walking to lampposts, where I ran a lamppost, and then I ran 2 lampposts, and then got up to where I was running, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to now where yesterday I did 25 kilometers,
Wow.
things like that. And it was just, and through all of that, it's the motivation of my kids, right? I just want to be better for them. And that in turn sort of keeps me, through my feet getting bloodied and losing my toenails, things like that. I just keep thinking, you know what, I'm doing it for them. And I want to be around for them, because I started family when I was late. I mean, we're about the same age. So I'm 52 years old. I think you might be a bit younger than me, but.
Oh no, we're on the same page there.
Yeah, same page. So I want to be, when I look at the numbers, my kids are, again, my daughter just turned 7 and my son is 10, so I want to be around for them to be healthy. So that's my main catalyst right now, is to be a better dad and be around for my kids.
That's awesome. I share your thoughts. The same thing. My father passed away when he was 60 years old. I'm approaching that. We're both approaching that age.
Scary, isn't it?
What's that?
It's scary.
Yeah, you start to think about what you're eating. Start to think about what you're doing, and sometimes you just ignore it. And I think that's my brother's in the same situation. We ignore our health because there's other things going on, and it's probably one of the most important things in our. If we're not there, we can't take care of anybody else.
We can. And I think as wrestlers, and we come from an era where, and I always give this story where I didn't even know you had to pay for wrestling fees when I was growing up. Because it's somebody, guys like your dad. For me, it was Jim Hall. It was Kevin Lomas. It was guys like that. They found a way to pay it for me. So in turn, I always had this tremendous sense that I had to give back. And in giving back so much, you forget about yourself. You really, truly forget about yourself, because, you're traveling and you're getting back, and then you're waking up early in the morning to go to practice again. And in that time, yes, you're trying to train, but you're eating late at night and you're just not thinking about yourself, because we've been taught by guys like your dad and, and my coaches that you give because somebody gave to us, but in turn, you do sit down one day and realize you do have to give to yourself as well. So that's the point where it's learning that balance. And, our coaches didn't have that balance, and we started following in their footsteps as well, where we absolutely no balance, we were away all the time, and I think for me, it's now learning a true balance, and the balance what makes me a healthier person and better coach and a better father as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's to your health. That's awesome. I was very excited to see, and again, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was one, because we want to get wrestling exposure, talk to you about your university and how you got there, but also the pictures on Instagram. Although you didn't want them there, man, it was like, I want to know this story, because this is pretty cool to see somebody my age that is, made a huge transition in his life.
It was tough, but it was fun.
Tough and fun. And you're going to continue doing it. You said the World Championships are
Well, I'm going to do the Masters again in April.
Okay.
Vegas, so I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna train more than just a month.
Okay.
Try to be a little bit more diligent with my training, probably the whole year, a couple of times, 3 times on the mat, and then hopefully go to the Masters the following 2025 in October.
Okay.
The world.
Perfect. And that's usually held across seas, is not?
Yes, it's usually in Europe somewhere.
Yeah, I have never. Well, I think it was only here once in
Yes.
Toronto years ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Probably 96.
A long time ago.
Yeah, I think my dad was selling T-shirts there at the time. If I remember right.
Wow.
Yeah. So you know what? Let's talk about your university, because
You know what? It's the coaching thing. It's been a long road for me, and I remember my first coaching job was in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Lakehead University. And I just graduated. I was teaching high school. My goal has always been to coach wrestling, coach at the university level. So I took that job in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And again, adding to my chips on my shoulder, I still carry, I don't know if you remember, they used to have the Ontario Forum where people went on and they talked.
yes.
And I remember somebody made a post, and, to this day, I still carry this thing. It says, Dawkins is never going to be a coach. He was a shitty wrestler. He'll never turn into a coach. He'll never do anything with that program in Thunder Bay. I don't even know why they're wrestling him. He's just going there for the money. And in hindsight, I took that job for $18,000 a year, and I was living with, you might know him, Harry Curtis, and his family. That's who I lived with for the year while I was there, first year. And it was definitely not for money. It was for the love of the sport. And then I was in Thunder Bay for 4 years, with a fantastic group of athletes. That university basically gave me my start. To this day, I still say, that's where I got a chance to start coaching at the university. Yes, I was coaching at U of A, helping out as assistant coach there with Vang Ioannidis, but truly Lakehead is where I got that start. And I thank that guy that put that post on the Ontario Forum that said, hey, Dawkins, he's a shitty wrestler. He'll never be a coach, and, he'll never be able to develop any athletes, So for me, that added to my chip. And from there, I went there 2005, 2009. I got a chance to come back to U of A. At that time, we were, I believe, number 18 or 17 in the country, and there was only 18 programs, so it was daunting taking over a program. The current coach had moved on to become the athletic director, and they had went through 3 sets of coaches in that period of that year, where I believe Gia was there coaching, then Jarrett Wall and a couple other guys finished off the year, and then I took over in May as the coach, May of 2009. And, I started the daunting task of rebuilding that program, and I used my connection throughout the country I recruited, and the big thing was the best wrestlers didn't want to come to U of A. I went out and I found the athletes that were getting fourth, were getting third places at nationals, third places in provincial championships, that they were a little bit like me. They had some chips on their shoulder and they had something to prove, so I built our program basically off lots of people that nobody else wanted. And from there, we worked our way up just through sheer hard work and dedication and recruiting and understanding that sometimes the best wrestlers aren't those ones with the gold medals at nationals or the high school champions, or the ones that actually had to struggle, and when you get to university, it's you got to go to school, you got to get up in the morning, you got to go to practice, then, you got to go home and study, and then somewhere in there you got to eat, and then you got to do it all over again. And the people that truly can do that are the ones that knew how to struggle, the ones that it wasn't just easy for them in high school or wherever you want to take it. And those, I built our program off a bunch of people that essentially nobody wanted because they weren't the national champions. And we went from there, and to where we are today, where we are, I'd say, arguably one of the best university programs and edging into one of the best development junior U23 level programs in the country, and I'm excited. I've been here for 16 years, and I'm hoping to do, at least 5 or 6 more years here to continue the program, and hopefully on that way, obviously we did win some national championships. We won the first ever women's national championship. We've won 2 of them. And then also our guys team won a national championship. It was 40 years drought. and we, sort of changed that drought. And this year we're vying to win again. Our programs are always constantly working hard. I mean, it's become harder and harder to get recruits because to this day, getting athletes to come to U of A is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult because there's still, I would hate to call it, there's still that, oh, why do you want to go to U of A? And, and to this day, we still constantly having to prove ourselves over and over. And it's become harder and harder to build programs because there isn't a lot of scholarships out there. A lot of people think there's scholarships in wrestling, but there isn't. So right now we have a lot of local athletes that we've worked with within our own club, and that's what we're vying on to take us into the next, 5 and 6 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about recruiting and how difficult it has been.
Yeah.
Where did the mindset come from, or what made you change and look for did you change? Did you automatically start looking for people with that chips on their shoulders, like you said,
yeah.
Or were you looking for the best of the best, and then,
it started from Thunder Bay, and it's funny because I recruited a bunch of people with my personality. They were guys that just wanted to work hard. Yes, they partied a little bit too much, but I mean, a couple of my guys from the Windsor area, and we just had so many. It went out and find those athletes that they, and you made them feel special. A big part of my recruiting thing was I would go and I would meet their families. I would sit down with their families. I would have a chat with their families, see how they treat their families. And for me, some red flags, if they were disrespect to their parents, then you know what? They weren't coming to my program. They weren't people I wanted, because I wanted that thing where you understand discipline, and discipline starts from how you treat the people that truly love you, how you treat your family. Because if you don't respect your family, you're not going to come and respect me or respect my program. So a big part was I did a lot of traveling, drove, watched them wrestle, saw how they reacted to when they didn't win matches or when they won matches. How were they? Were they humble? And I mean, for me, I'm not a big celebrating guy after you win matches. For me, I think when you over celebrate, you're showing that to you, it was a surprise you won. I mean, I like those guys. You win, yes, a little bit of celebrating. I tell my athletes, celebrate after you won the national championships. Celebrate after you're on the national team, because it's a process along the way. And if you start, overly celebrating after every match, you're showing that you don't expect to win, but you're also disrespecting your opponents, right? Because they worked hard as well. So for me, it was that whole overall respect, on every level, having humility and wanting to work hard, and it wasn't wanting to work hard and tell everybody I'm working hard. I say champions are built and made, when nobody's watching. That's a quote that I love. The work comes in when it's early in the morning. To this day, I'm up at 4 a.m. doing my workouts, because I still am it's that chip on my shoulder. You know what? I'm going to work out when nobody else is, because I don't want to do things when everybody else is doing it. And my athletes have developed that same sort of personality. They want to outwork everyone. And that's what we do. We just pick those athletes that want to work. And obviously, like any other programs, we've had some athletes that we've made some mistakes when they came here and it just didn't work. And those athletes, I'm saying, hey, you know what, good luck wherever you're at. And we wish them luck, and even though wrestling is a big part of it, you want people to be where they want to be. And, ultimately for me, my second most proudest moment for me, other than my kids being born, is when I get to see my athletes cross the stage, when they're graduating. And I'm literally, I'm that guy that's yelling their name like that obnoxious dad in the back row, standing up and trying to embarrass them when they're graduating, because I'm proud of that, to say, hey, you know what, I helped them, in their journey, and now they're good, ready to start their careers and their lives. So, I mean, for me, coaching isn't just about the wrestling mat. It's all encompassing, being invited to weddings, things like that. I mean, for me, it's just wrestling. It's more than just wrestling. And I think there's some people that have taught me that. One of my biggest mentors to this day is Jim Hall, coached out of Georgetown, where, I know I'm long-winded here a little bit, but he did something for our White Oaks program in my grade 12 year. So he got appointed the head athletic director in Georgetown, and that's where he's from, the historic Georgetown program. And he told Georgetown High School, I'm not going to take this job unless you let me go back every day and coach my high school wrestling team. And it's that kind of sacrifice where he would teach all day in Georgetown and then drove to Oakville to coach our team that last year. And that was profound on me, that dedication that he showed to a group of, at that time was only boys wrestling, but to a group of young men that he helped build and motivated. And for me, to this day, that still pushes me to say, hey, geez, he didn't have to do that, so that sort of helped me build the person I am, to say.
Thank you for tuning into the Conceive, Believe, and Achieve podcast. I hope you found today's episode insightful and inspiring. Your support means the world to us, so don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a comment in the section below. Your feedback fuels our journey to bring you more valuable content and stories from the realm of sports. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, believing in yourself, and achieving greatness. Thank you for listening.